So, welcome everybody to episode 69 of Dork Tunes. So, this is our first episode in quite a few months, and I must apologise. Reason being, and I was just speaking to a new guest about this, was because I started a new job just before Christmas. So that's kind of taken a lot of my time because it's super busy. So, but we're back now. So here we are, episode 69. So this week, I'm talking to a very nice gentleman. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name's Justin Bell, and I'm the audio director and composer at Obsidian Entertainment.
Okay. Hello, Justin, and welcome, and thank you very much for taking part. So, Justin, tell me a little bit about you. Where did you come from? How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, yeah.
Normally I've spoken to so many different composers, and every single one has a different journey. So some basically networked until they got some work. Some went through the classical kind of, they did college, they got the experience, they had friends in studios, they kind of went in that way. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And first of all, thanks a lot, Pete, for doing Dork Tunes. It's really great that you do this and that you're supporting the game music community. And
thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, let's see. How did I get started? I played piano when I was a kid, very little. I was 3 years old, but I wasn't a very good student.
Wow.
I wouldn't practice, but I would play a lot. And I just sort of dabbled a bit throughout my life, and was surrounded by music. My uncle was a percussionist, and my stepfather was a singer, and he had a little band. And so when I turned 13, I got an electric guitar and started teaching myself. Yes, yeah, everything changed, right? Exactly. I had a little portable recorder. They called them a Porta Studio. It was the Porta Studio 424, I think. I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but it was just a little 4-track cassette recorder that you can record 4 tracks onto. And I would record my own music and record my band and whatnot, and was in a ska band and a punk band for a little while. And then I kind of turned. What's that? Oh yeah. I've always had sort of the shaved. This has been the look for many years. Yeah, just easier, right?
When I was, I always tell this story. When I was living back home in Dublin, in Ireland, I used to spend, no joke, £100 a month getting my hair done. I'd have at one point I had 7 different colors in it, and the guy that used to do it, he'd spend 4 or 5 hours doing it, and he'd take pictures every month of the different hairstyles that he'd give me, so he'd put it in his book.
That's cool. Yeah, we need to see some pictures of that.
Weirdly, no. It was before the time of camera phones, so nothing.
No pictures, huh? Oh wow. Yeah, well, maybe you should just dye it again, and post some pictures just for fun.
There's a guy on Instagram, and he has the most beautiful hair I've ever seen. It's just literally a rainbow, and it's gorgeous. I'll have to send you it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. That sounds really hard to pull off.
Making my hair longer and stuff. So after you got your 4-track.
Yeah, got the 4-track, was in the ska band, studied jazz guitar for a little while. That's where I sort of began my formal education with music. Prior to that, I was just completely self-taught. Went to school to learn about recording and post-production. So I took a little detour from music and worked in a recording studio for a little while. Then then I was recording VO, a lot of what we call ADR, which is where you record someone. It's when they replace the dialogue in a film, when they bring the actor into the studio and they have them match the lip sync. So I did that for a while, recorded in a music studio for a while. I took that detour because I wanted to learn the technical side of of music, because at the time, really the only way, you know, computers were not ubiquitous the way that they are today. I mean, at least in terms of recording software, it wasn't so freely available. And so, you know, I knew I wanted to record myself. I just didn't have the money to pay an engineer at the time. It would have cost hundreds of dollars. So I was like, well, I'll learn, you know. And so I went to school for that. Got my, so that was a little detour, got my degree in music, an associate's degree, and then my bachelor's degree. And I got my bachelor's in music composition, and studied classical guitar while I was in college as well. And it wasn't until my later years in college where I realized that, you know, my lifelong passion of playing video games and the other passion of playing music was something that I could merge together and make into a career. And once that light bulb went off, I was very determined to try to get into the industry. And I think I spent a good 5 years trying to network and break into the industry. And, you know, I had my job on the side, which was a computer technician. And I would just fix people's computers and computer problems. And so, yeah, breaking into the industry back then was tough because the amount of jobs that were available at the time, there weren't that many. So I'm talking about like 2006, 2007. So you would go on the various job posting sites for video games, and you would see maybe 1 or 2 audio jobs posted every single year, right?
Wow.
And a lot of them required you to move. So a lot, you know, frequently they were in the UK or in Singapore or, you know, something, or in Canada or something like that. And but I was very determined, and I really I just wanted to work on games because I love them. I didn't really care how. And so my first job in the industry was at a studio called White Moon Dreams. And I did sound effects for them, and I worked with the composer that we hired, and we recorded VO. And unfortunately, the games we were working on got canceled, and then I got a job at Pandemic Studios as a sound designer, and did a lot of localization and additional sound design. And this was towards the tail end of when Pandemic Studios was open, and I was there for maybe 6 or 7 months. What's that? Oh, right. Yes, I know, right? Yeah, that name would never work nowadays, right? Yeah, I know. Yeah, and so the studio got closed down a little bit later, and then I got the job at Obsidian, and I've been at Obsidian since 2010, so it's been 11 years.
Wow.
And in that time, I started there as a sound designer. My first project was Fallout New Vegas, and in that time, I've been able to work on a ton of projects, just every single kind of project you can imagine, from a South Park game to a Fallout game to a tactical tank, World of Tanks sort of clone, to, you know, Infinity Engine throwback games like Pillars of Eternity and The Outer Worlds and everything in between. And it's just been a really great experience. And it wasn't until about halfway through my career at Obsidian where I started writing music for our scores. And so I wrote the music for Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, and for Tyranny, for The Outer Worlds, and for a card game called Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. And Grounded, of course.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of those, like The Outer Wilds, that was kind of one that went absolutely insane, you know. How was working
Outer Worlds. Yeah. I know.
That went insane. So how was working on that for you? Do you find like working on different games, you do it differently, or do you have kind of the same kind of path that you work down?
No, I always approach when I write very, very similarly. I always start with the concept of the game itself. You know, what kind of story are we trying to tell? Because in my view, that's what music does the best. It tells a story that words cannot express. And so I'm always looking for, what is the emotional angle that I can try to hit with the music that maybe the story isn't overtly trying to tell, right? And with every game that I work on, I always, you know, in my view, music is the expression of the soul, right? It's the expression of the heart.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to express in our games. So I'll try to figure out what is that emotional human angle of the people in this world that we're trying to tell. So in Pillars of Eternity 1, the game was about the Hollowborn, and it's these children who are born without souls. And as a parent, that's a very visceral type of, as with someone with an active imagination, it's very imagining that sort of thing is sort of tragic, right? And so when I wrote the main theme, I wrote it from the perspective of the people that lived in the world of Aora. And there's this little section in the middle that's a very simple, fluty sort of very reduced thing where it's just two flutes, and that it has a very childlike innocence to it, right? And that is to sort of speaking to these children who are robbed of their humanity. For the Outer Worlds, the people in the Halcyon colony are oppressed effectively, right? But they don't. It's almost to the point where they don't even realize it, and they're oppressed by these corporations, and to the point where they don't even. They're just more or less like robots, right?
Yeah, they just kind of plod along.
Yeah, just living their lives, in these very corporately approved ways. And so what I wanted to try to tell with the theme for that game was, well, imagine growing up with your family, and trying to make ends meet in the Halcyon colony where everything is sort of rationed out to you in corporate approved ways. And what would that be like? And so what kind of hope would you have as a family trying to live in that environment?
I have to admit, the main theme for that, it's probably the only game I remember of sitting and listening to the entire thing without even pressing, a button to start playing. It's just beautiful, I have to admit. Beautiful.
Thank you.
And I know
Yes.
you were talking about kind of engaging the story and kind of engaging the player, etc. When you think about certain games or soundtracks, for example, like John Hillman's That Dragon Cancer, it's possibly one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. It's so minimalistic, but yet so beautiful. And you can hear every single note because he gives the time for those notes to breathe and for the person listening to be able to hear them and to hear the kind of pain, the love, just the confusion, everything that the people in the game are going through. When actually, that was actually written about some friends of his, and the situation that they were in. Really beautiful and really touching. Other time, you think about games like, and I say this all the time, but it's still one of the best games I've ever played, which is Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Jessica's music for that just blows. I mean, she blows my mind because she's so unbelievably talented and really, really funny. Just FYI. Nice. She's a really good friend, and I've been lucky enough to meet her a few times in person. And she recently did obviously a little Orpheus with Jim Fowler. But like she sent me the music for Everybody's Gone to the Rapture about 6 weeks beforehand. And I listened to it, and there was 2 particular tracks that I heard, and both made me cry. I admit, and I've always said this, I'm a crier when it comes to music. If a particular piece of music moves me, I'm gone, It's like there's a piece of music on John's soundtrack for That Dragon Cancer called Awake, Oh Awake, My Joel. And it's probably in my top 3 pieces of music of all time.
Yeah, wow.
Without question.
But when the power of music, right?
Yeah, that always blows my mind when somebody like yourself, a composer, who can create something that you can engage with emotionally without even playing the game, just blows my mind,
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's like some of those emotions, imagine in that Dragon Cancer, it's autobiographical about a father trying to take care of his son who's terminally sick, and what you go through, I can only imagine, is just so complex. Like, how do words possibly express that inner emotion?
I mean, I don't have children, and I remember two stories to do with the interview that I did with John Hillman before. Is we did the interview twice, because the first time I did two interviews in one day. Not that time. Basically, my partner wiped the Mac, and it wiped the interview without me saving it to the cloud. I was like, oh no. So I had to email John and just say, look, would you mind if we did it again, excuse me? And he was like, no problem. So we did it again, and it was fine. But the first time that we did it, like, I don't even have children, and I spent most of the interview on the verge of tears, and you could hear it in my voice, and I was so conscious about it, but there was nothing I could do about it, because it was just, it's a really difficult subject matter to deal with.
It is. I mean, it doesn't take much to put yourselves in that father's shoes to understand what they're feeling, right? And we've all been we've all been children, and we've all had parents, right? And we've all had siblings, and maybe all of us, I don't know. No, maybe not.
In a way,
many of us.
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, as you can see, one of my dogs, Peggy, in the background, she would be our fourth when our first one passed away in 2016, and it was the hardest thing I think I've ever gone through, that dealing with that kind of emotion, because people don't realize sometimes that they're not just an animal, or a pet, they're part of your life. And, like almost your child or children, your world revolves around them, and sometimes you don't even realize. The first thing we do in the morning is get up, take them out for a walk, go to the bathroom, make sure they're fed, before we even do anything ourselves. True?
Oh, absolutely. I've never owned a dog, but I've had cats throughout my life, and they become your little buddy, your little friend, your little confidant, and it very much is very similar, because they depend on you for their life, to be alive, right? And for affection, and
they're very affectionate, all right.
yeah, I could see you snuggled up on the bed.
I know. I don't know where the other one is, though. They both need feeding soon, so I'm sure they'll be delighted. Yeah. So how did you deal with the kind of different themes through the games that you've worked on?
Yeah, the way that I write music is that I just write what I feel, and I try to write from the heart. And I know this is a continuation of what we were just talking about, but a lot of the time, I don't know how this works. It's just, I have some sort of inner muse where frequently it'll be the middle of the night, and I know I have to write this piece of music, and I'm thinking about it, and notes just start appearing in my mind. I just start hearing music, and that's when I know that I've struck gold, because I'll rush outside and into the living room, and with my phone, and try not to wake up the rest of the family, and quietly whisper into the mic of the phone what I'm hearing in my head.
How many people I speak to that say the same thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's because when you try to, I always find this when I'm trying to deliberately write a piece of music.
You just
no. It's like it doesn't come from that. It comes from some inner subconscious place, in a way.
And I think that's part of the reason where I have never really kind of scripted any conversations that I have with any composer, because it doesn't come across well. I think it almost sounds a bit cardboard, and it doesn't help a conversation kind of flow. Even when I did the panels at EGX, I had a very, very basic kind of to-do list, start, make sure conversation happens, finish, questions and answers. Now I'm trying to, I can't wait to do those again, actually, to be brutally honest, because I've missed that with the pandemic. Really, really missed that.
Yeah, human interaction it's something that, once it's gone, then you realize what you don't have,
Yeah, totally. Like my best friend, she's been shielding since the beginning of March last year. So, and we're very, very huggy people. So June 19th is when she can come out, because she'll have had her second vaccine. And I'm lucky it's a Saturday because we're going to spend about an hour just hugging each other silly. I can't wait.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I recently got the vaccine as well. Very fortunate to be able to do that. And I went to lunch with some friends, some coworkers, and I hadn't gone to lunch in about a year.
Yeah.
And taking off my mask and feeling it, I felt very strange and exposed,
Yeah. Oh, totally. I'm going out on Friday with work, and it's a bit of a bother because you have to book days and days in advance, or sometimes weeks, to be able to get a table even in the pub. But it's the first time I'll be in the pub since summer last year.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a long time. Yeah,
it is.
I can't wait. Honestly, can't wait. And like me and my friends, we've booked some gigs. So I'm going to a couple of gigs in the next kind of couple of months. And again, that's the first time since the beginning of this middle of the first and second lockdown here. So again, it's been about a year.
What do you? Oh, sorry, gigs. So you're in a band?
No. No, not musically minded whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Just with my ear. No, we're going to see a male singer in Manchester in July, and then I'm going to see some people from Drag Race in September. So
nice.
Some friends. So I can't wait. It's kind of like you're getting back to that normal,
Yeah. And what is normal now? Yeah.
I know. I think at the minute for me, the one kind of thing that I have as a want is to be able to go home, because I've not seen my parents in 2-3 years, and they're all back in. And my sisters and stuff, and they're all back in Dublin. So
that's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially because my mum, she had an accident before Christmas. She broke her pelvis and she broke her hip. So she was in hospital for a few months on her own. So she couldn't see anybody and have any visitors, and but
yeah, that's scary, especially nowadays, right? Being in the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, because she's like 75.
Okay.
Cancel it out too loud, she'd kill me. So both my parents are, so they're getting on. So I'm bursting to go home.
Yeah, I bet. I bet you are.
Also, I really want to go to another VGM gig.
Yeah.
It's been ages, I like seeing things online. I don't know whether you know, but there's like a UK singer called Sophie Ellis Bextor.
Mm-mm.
She during the pandemic, she did this kitchen disco, she called it, and every Friday she would be on Instagram Live doing a disco from her kitchen, singing songs of hers, doing cover versions, having she's got 5 kids and they're just running around wild, and it was just hilarious, just brilliant. So she's been doing those. She stopped them now, but she'll probably do the occasional one for special occasions. And going to see her live this year as well. Sorry, next year. She was planning to play this month actually, but it's been pushed back till March. But yeah, can't wait. But it's silly things you can't wait to do. I mean, I've spent 3 days a week now in the office, and I love it because it's silly things like getting on a bus and seeing people, and going out and buying lunch. Excuse me. It's just the minor things that make your day kind of really exciting.
Yeah. Right. I know. It's mundane little things that you don't appreciate until they're gone. And then when they're gone,
Yeah.
for me, for the pandemic, it took me a while for that to affect me, because I tend to be kind of a hermit just
Mhm.
naturally. I don't mind isolation. I kind of prefer it in a way.
You wouldn't
Um,
be the first person to say that on this show.
yeah, I bet. Yeah. It's sort of the lifestyle requires it in a way, because you need to be able to have a quiet environment where you can hear yourself think,
Mm. It,
because it's such an ephemeral thing, right? There's
yeah.
notes happening in your head and you're trying to manifest them, and
But it always blows my mind in how you can create something so amazing and so much of it. And like I remember Gareth Coker, he invited me to London in December 2019 to see the recording of what was now Ori and the Will o' the Wisps. And I've never seen anything like it. The man is a machine. He was sat at the mixing desk, and the live orchestra would play, and they'd be changing, notes, things, tiny little things, minute by minute, and it was just minor, a minor up or minor down, or changing something out, putting something in. Just blows my mind how people like you can do that. I think it's a calling almost.
yeah. um that's interesting that you bring that up, because when you're working with an orchestra, um so the way that you communicate with an orchestra is with written music, right?
Mm.
And sheet music is notoriously unreliable in terms of expressing what you want it to be, right? You have some symbols that you can use, and that can be interpreted in so many different ways. And as the composer, you hear it one very specific way in your head, and you do your best when you're notating the music to try to express what that means with these very cryptic symbols. And there are some people. I work with an orchestrator. His name, for many years, I've worked with a guy named Ryan Humphreys, and he's an expert at this, and he's really good at figuring out um, how to help guide the orchestra. And one of the things that he does, besides make sure that the music that I write fits with the instruments that I've written them for, but he also makes sure that what he's hearing with what we call the mock-up, which is the computerized version that I provide him, is something that can be translated to a musician. And you know there's so much interpretation that goes on there, that even sometimes when he and I will finish a piece and he's fully orchestrated and notated it, and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that seems right, and then we give it to a musician, it comes out completely the opposite or very different than what I imagined it would be. And to some degree you have to embrace that as a composer, um, because that's sort of the beauty of working with live musicians, is that they bring their own experiences to the table, and their own way of expressing music. And so you can't, if you try to fight that, then you are losing out on the reason why you collaborate with amazing musicians, right? But there are some times where you're trying to create a very special effect,
Mhm.
and it's sometimes surprising to folks how much time you can spend on such a short passage of music, right?
Mhm.
Just it needs to be shaped in a very specific way, and so you just do it over and over and over again until you kind of get what you want. And
Yeah.
frequently what happens with me is that we'll do that and we'll record it over and over and over again, maybe this little passage, and then when I get the music back, the recordings back, I will edit them. I will edit the tracks and the different takes and splice them together to make sort of the perfect track. Because I think another component of it is working with an orchestra is, well, let's face it, it's you're hiring 70, 80 people, and so the clock is ticking, and it's not inexpensive to do that, right? So you know if you're on a tight budget, which many people frequently are, you kind of have to you would rather have the perfect take from the musician and just have it be amazing from start to finish. But when you're on a schedule and time is ticking by, you have to just get what you can and then come back. And if you're not happy with it, massage that into the form that you're looking for.
I definitely saw that with Gareth, because started at 9 p.m, lunch at 12, back at 1, finish at 5:30. Absolutely no going over.
Nope. Because you have to pay everyone overtime.
Yes. And Air Studios, so it's not going to be cheap.
No, Air Studios, definitely no. And I mean, what a beautiful hall too, by the way.
It's absolutely incredible. I will say it was the best day of my life. It's one of the things
wow.
I've always wanted to see, and I never thought, in a strange way, I'm connected with Ori now, because I was in that room when it was being recorded, like physically in with the orchestra. So in a weird way, every time I listen to it, I'm like, I can hear me in that. Isn't that funny? That's funny. But
it's a surreal feeling hearing all those musicians play at the same time. It almost doesn't feel real.
Yeah, totally. It was amazing. And it's funny because you mentioned about using an orchestrator. Something I did last year, before the Rona hit. I was asked to be a music consultant for a game that is due out very shortly, The Magnificent Truffle Pigs, by a new studio called Thunked, which is a dear friend of mine called Andrew. He used to work with the Chinese Room, and that was an experience, because it's actually a lot harder than people think, because you have to read the script, you have to understand the characters, you have to get inside their head, listen to the conversations that they're having, and then curate playlists, really kind of, pick out and pop in where you think the right pieces, for the game, the feel of it, because at the end of the day, you're potentially changing how the game is perceived or heard. And I'm really excited about the news that's coming out. I can't say a thing, but I am so excited about the news that's going to be coming out very soon. So I will let you know as soon as it's possible. But really exciting experience, and I hope to do that again.
Yeah, that is. Have you ever considered a career in music supervision? Because that's effectively what you did, and there are entire jobs, and that's all you do.
I've never thought about that. I was always like doing the music consultancy. It's hours and hours of work, and it's really hard, and it's really personal, because for me it was for a friend, but you don't want to let that person down, because they're not just a friend, they're also your employer. It was a paid position, so I wasn't going to make sure I wanted to make sure that I was doing the best possible job, and I've always said to Andrew that, at any point, if he needs anything or I feel that anything needs changing, I would always, recurate those playlists or add new ones. Or, I did ones for the characters, I did a separate one for the actual game, with all different music throughout each one. And you're having to think about the conversations that the characters have had and the situations that they're going to be in or are in, and their history. And, it's such a big melting pot to work with. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And to see that game come out with the music that's alongside with it has made me like the proudest person in the world. You feel like a big proud parent, when you hear your music with a game. It's the best thing in the world, I would imagine.
It absolutely is. I mean, it's a real privilege. Not everyone has that opportunity, and every time it happens to me, I can't believe that it's happening. Because it's just a dream come true, and B, it's just so surreal, right? Yeah. It almost doesn't feel like it's happening. So I definitely relate, and what you said about music changing the way that you feel, it completely does, right? The smallest change to the music can completely affect what you're feeling inside, right? Horror games are very effective at doing that, right? They manipulate your emotions with music or the lack of music. One of my favorite YouTube videos that demonstrates this is they call it Star Wars Without Williams or something like that, and it's this clip of the end of Star Wars: A New Hope, when they're getting the medals at the very end of the film, and there's no music whatsoever.
Audio. Yeah, I've seen that. That is so funny.
It's hilarious. It's so awkward to watch, you know, and it's like, you know, and it makes you realize, like, wow, how horrible this is without music, right? You know. Yeah,
that's really funny. I've not seen that in ages. I'm gonna have to get that out tonight.
Yeah, it's good. I like to show it to folks to help folks who aren't musically inclined to understand the value of music too. You know, it's really great at communicating that. There was also, for a while, when Flash was still on the internet, there was a website called Dooku.net, like Count Dooku from Star Wars. And it was just a clip of him on the speeder bike kind of going over these canyons. And you can hit this button, and every single time you hit the button, it cycles out a different piece of music. And I can't remember all the different pieces of music, but it was popular music from the mid to late 80s. And it was just, you know, every time you hit the button, it had a different feel completely. Sometimes it was like sweeping epic, and sometimes it was comedic, and other times it was, you know, you felt like you were watching The Breakfast Club, or, you know, it's just like, it was all over the place. And nothing changed except for the music. The visuals were exactly the same.
Amazing. It blows my mind with I'm addicted to TikTok, like proper addicted. I have to, if I go on TikTok, I'll be there 2 hours later, you know, just flicking through, you know, chuckling away to myself, sending TikToks to friends. You know, it blows my mind what people can do on there. I saw one girl, and she there was somebody recording while she was recording a TikTok, and like she was doing all these like different movements, and, you know, putting a hat on, taking the hat off, and it was all out of sync. But then when she stitched it together and put it on, and they showed the actual TikTok, it was absolutely mind-blowing. You know, it blows my mind what people can do these days with music and tech. Just insane.
Yeah, the technology has been democratized to a certain degree, right? You still need access to a computer, but even with TikTok, you don't need a computer. You have your phone, and the phone is the most ubiquitous computer that across the world. It's very common for folks to have that, and that's unlocked the potential for all of these creative people that didn't have access to that technology. I mean, for years, you know, I was talking about earlier when I was started in the industry, there were a few ways that you can record yourself. You could get a reel-to-reel tape recorder. You could get one of those cassette recorders. You could get Pro Tools, which had been out only for a few years at that time. But a lot of these solutions were thousands and thousands of dollars. And now you can download an app for free and do a lot of that, which is amazing.
Mind-blowing. So I'm aware I'm keeping you. I'm going to ask you a really difficult question as your last question.
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your favorite game soundtrack of all time that isn't a work of your own?
Well, that's easy, because none of my soundtracks are ever even going to be remotely my favorite, because I always listen back and can only hear the warts and all. So let's see. Wow.
I know some composers who don't listen to their music that they've finished because they don't want to hear the warts and all.
Yeah, that's true. I have that same problem. I can't play games that I worked on. I just can't. I don't know why. I suspect I'm not the only one. Favorite music. Okay, so favorite soundtrack of all time is the soundtrack for The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. It's probably one of the single most influential soundtracks on me as an artist
Mhm.
ever, which is kind of a difficult thing to say. I mean, I haven't really listened to it recently, especially considering everything that happened with
Yes.
Jeremy Soule.
Yes.
So it's a complex thing, and I mean, it's not complex, but it's a shame.
I think,
but
in these kind of circumstances, and it happens a lot in, with famous people, writers, whichever, there has to be, and there can be, I think, a separation from the person and their work.
Yeah.
Because you look at the work in that vein, Skyrim just blows my mind. The beautiful melodies that are in that game.
Yeah, no, it's true. Sorry, this is a big tangent, but it touches on exactly what you're saying. This is something that we grappled with when I was in school, and I was taking music history classes, and we would talk about Bach or Wagner, and there was a very strong anti-Semitic, they were strongly anti-Semitic, and even in some of Bach's work, some of his some of the lyrics are pretty inflammatory, like by today's standards, right? It would never happen today, or it would, but
I didn't
it
know
would get
this.
canceled pretty fast.
Yeah, I genuinely didn't know this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like when you listen to Bach's music or Wagner's music, it's like, wow, so amazing, such beautiful music. And yeah, I mean, when you think about the type of people they were, they may have been great people, but they also had these really kind of abhorrent sort of views on life. There's the dog.
Yes, she said
Here we go.
Wanted to come up and say hello. So a fitting end, I think. But
yes,
I just wanted to say a massive thank you for taking your time out of the day, because I understand that everybody's so busy. Particularly you composers, you never have a day off, do you?
No, it's when you're working in a game studio, every day is a busy day.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Right, I shall say thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and maybe we'll have you back someday again.
Thank you so much, Pete. It was great to talk to you.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye.